This is Swiss and Chips, your British guide to Switzerland.
Hello and welcome to Swiss and Chips. My name is Simon Sried.
And I'm Jo Fay.
Today we have a very special episode and it is about becoming Swiss.
Hooray!
And that's also why I lead or guide a little bit through the episode, because I make an interview with Jo.
Yes.
Because...
well, I'm hoping to become Swiss.
Yeah, so in a few weeks, or when is it? When is the start? You will start the process of the long process of becoming Swiss citizen.
Exactly. Well, our first kind of move on this checkerboard of Swiss citizenship starts at the beginning of March.
Okay, great. And that was also why we thought we record an episode before all starts. So at the end, we hopefully can look back and see if it was how you expected it. And also we can take our listeners a bit along the road to see how it is, how the whole process is.
Exactly.
So today it will be a bit preview and maybe many questions we can't answer yet, but we talk a bit about why it comes so far and why do you want to do it and how long will it take and what do you expect and what your worries are and so on.
Exactly, yes. This is kind of the calm before the storm, we could say.
Yes, perfect. So becoming Swiss, huh? What does that mean exactly? I mean, you want to be a Swiss, I guess, but what does that exactly mean and what will you get? What does it involve, roughly?
Yeah, well, I hope that at the end of it, I'll have a nice red passport with the Swiss flag on the front.
I mean, that's basically the official document.
Exactly,
right?
yeah.
But what stands behind of it?
It just means that on paper, I'll be a Swiss citizen. So just as Swiss as you.
Yeah.
On paper. Mm-hmm. And that means I'll, have all the kind of obligations and rights that all Swiss people have.
Can you name maybe a few examples?
Yep. I'll be able to vote, for example. I don't have to, but I'll be able to if I want to, which I will. I'll also be, protected like any other Swiss citizen is by the embassies and so on. It also means that I can't be deported if I commit a crime, like foreigners can be.
Do you plan on
in theory,
committing one? Or
not before I get my passport. I would never commit a crime in Switzerland.
Yeah.
That's all I can think of at the moment.
Okay. Yeah, it's already more than I can think of.
Yeah,
so.
And also, there's this kind of hierarchy of nationalities when it comes to jobs.
Oh, yeah, true, yes.
They have to offer jobs to Swiss people first. I'll be one of those.
Yeah, true.
If it all works out.
Yeah, the thing is, if you have the passport, if you get it when you are born, then you maybe also don't really know exactly what your advantages are. So
yeah, true.
It's good you tell me now.
Yeah, lucky you.
And do you already have a plan and do you know what it involves, the process till you get to that point?
Well, I've only been in Switzerland 9 years this May, and you have to be in Switzerland 10 years. There was a little change at the beginning of last year that took it down from 12 to 10. Mm-hmm. But it may seem a little bit early to be looking into this now, but I am aware that there are certain you have to have your ducks in line a little bit before you get started. So that's why I looked into it quite early. Because, for example, you have to live in the same community or Gemeinde for a certain number of years before you can apply.
You can't move, that means.
Exactly.
Okay.
So I thought, better check that out. So I don't
otherwise
suddenly
you
move
think,
the month
now
before.
I want it, and then it says 5 years from now you have to
exactly.
stay in the same place.
You need to stay put. So I thought, better check that out so I don't move and ruin it.
But people don't have to get the Swiss passport, do they?
No, of course not. It's voluntary.
Okay, so there are people living in Switzerland for 20 years but don't have a Swiss passport.
Oh, yes, of course.
Okay. So you said it's 10 years and then you go through a kind of process. Do you already know how long this will take? Or?
Yeah, well, that's a good question. We've spoken to a few people who are kind of in the process of applying or have applied and are waiting for a result or have already got it. And there seems to be a wide range of lengths of time that people are waiting. I guess it's a few years that it might take all in all.
Okay, and
something like that.
You have to do what kind of things?
Yeah, well, first things first, we're going to an info evening at the beginning of March here in Bern to find out exactly what's involved. There's some information online, but I don't think it's entirely complete.
I see.
So you go to an info evening, and hopefully they tell us everything that we need to know. You have to collect a kind of dossier of your documents, for example, your permit to be in Switzerland, your passport, all kinds of different personal information and proof about this and that. Collect all of that. And when you submit all of that, you've basically submitted your request to become Swiss. And after that, I think starts the real fun. Like you might have to go and have an interview in person, or you have to take the citizenship test as well.
Okay. And there are sometimes you read in the newspapers that there are kind of horrifying stories that someone didn't get the Swiss passport because of whatever.
Oh, God, yes.
So I'm not sure how difficult is it to get the Swiss passport. If you live in Switzerland for 10 years, do you think there is a chance of not getting it, or do you have to, how difficult is it really?
Yeah, well, this is a really interesting question, because I read all of these stories kind of with horror that happen and think, oh, no.
Great.
What have I ever possibly done in the past 9 years that somebody might hold against me once I've applied?
Do you have an example of that?
Yeah, and I think these horror stories about people who have been in Switzerland a long time and apply to become Swiss but then get rejected, it seems like some of them happen in villages where people get to vote for them to become Swiss, whereas in the cities, there's no vote.
Yes,
I think.
I see. But do you have an example of...
Yes, I do.
These horror stories?
Yeah, exactly. Well, there was one family who lived in a village somewhere in Switzerland. The name escapes me now. But it was all over the newspapers that they were rejected on grounds of walking around in the village wearing tracksuits.
Okay, but that can't be the only reason.
Yeah. Well, that's why it was said that people voted against them. But, I have the feeling that it's not about the clothing. It's maybe about the message or the vibe that people got from
so
these
maybe
families,
this voting system, do you have an idea how this works exactly?
Well, it seems that in in villages or places where people generally know each other a bit better than in a big city or town, for example, there's a community meeting, and it's been announced in the newspaper before that Mr. So-and-so wants to become Swiss. Mm-hmm. The community comes together and then they vote. And sometimes I think the person is asked to step out of the room or not, depending if people want to discuss it a little bit.
Has to be said, I voted once.
Did you?
Yeah, I did.
Cool.
Yeah. So that was... it's quite a while ago, and it was in Adelboden, so a smallish village with 3,500 people living there. Mm-hmm. And we voted for someone who went to school with me, actually.
Oh, yeah?
So he was from...
also doesn't really matter.
Iraq, I think.
Oh, okay, yep.
And
he was a refugee.
Yes, he was. His parents were refugees. Uh-huh. So he went to school with me for like at least 6, 7, 8 years. I can't really remember. And yes, and we voted then, and there was someone stepping up for them and explaining who they are and explaining how they are integrated in the village and which friends they have and what they're doing and what their plans are. And then we voted, and there was also the teacher telling a few things about him and some who their friends are and so on. And
interesting.
So basically to explain how well is that person integrated and how Swiss is that person, so roughly.
Right.
And then you just vote.
Okay, and
he got the Swiss passport.
Thank goodness, happy story.
Yeah. Happy
Great.
ending, yes.
Yeah. But then in the big cities, we were just talking about this before we started recording today, there's no vote. And I said, is that a little bit unfair?
I mean...
in both ways. On the one hand, if you're in a small place, I guess people want to have a say about who can become Swiss and who can stay there. And maybe you know each other. But then on the other hand, people might vote based on their personal feelings rather than the kind of...
I see your point, but if one person decides or 3,000 people decide, can be unfair in both ways.
That's true.
So,
which brings me on to another one that we read about, and this was also a huge case in Switzerland. And I think it was a young woman who'd lived in Switzerland most of her life, felt very Swiss, and she decided, why not formalise it, get my Swiss passport.
Yes.
And then she was rejected for not being Swiss enough, and that was a kind of national outrage, I think.
Yeah. And so speaking of which, do you think it's a fair system then, or would you do it differently?
I'm not sure I should say before I get the passport, but
I think in some ways it's quite a good. You have to learn certain things about Switzerland, and you have to know quite a few things that most Swiss probably wouldn't know. You have to speak one of the Swiss languages a little bit, and you have to have an interview or one of these public votes. You have to live for 10 years in Switzerland. You are not allowed to move the last years you live in Switzerland. Does that make sense? Is that fair? Or
I don't know. I mean, who am I to say? But on the one hand, get back to me in 5 years or so. No, but on the one hand, I think the language requirements aren't that high.
Yes.
They changed the law recently to set a kind of federal level, although cantons, which is you have to have written A2 standard with this European framework and spoken B1 standard. Although cantons can have it higher if they want to.
Yes.
And so on the one hand, I think I don't know, it's just my personal view, but isn't that a little bit low if you want to become Swiss and you have a very, very basic written standard? On the other hand, maybe that's quite nice because they want to be inclusive, even if maybe, you can't spell or your grammar isn't that great.
Yes, also Swiss can't write, or some of them are not very good in writing.
Yeah. So on the one hand, I think that aspect is quite nice.
Because on the other hand, you make it more difficult for people who are maybe not, can't learn so easy.
Exactly, yeah.
That would also not be good. Then you give advantages to people who are already having advantages in their life, basically.
Yeah, true. So I think when it comes to language requirements, that's pretty good. But there are parts of it, I don't know. The sort of what do you know about Switzerland citizenship test. Yes. You get given documents, or you can go to a course and you have to learn all about Switzerland. I think that's quite good. I mean, it may be that it's
hard though.
Yeah, it's hard. It might be questions that people who are Swiss don't even know. But I have the feeling it's kind of about, it's a bit of a trial to prove that you really want to do it.
True, yeah. I also think so, yes.
I think.
Yeah.
When it comes to the interview or people voting, I'm not sure about that. I mean, somehow it has to be decided, how Swiss are you? How integrated are you? How much do you want to be here? But that seems quite subjective.
Yeah, true. But if you go through all of these hassle, then the question is, because you don't have to do it, and you have at the end the Swiss passport, you can vote, and you have some rights. Is that the reason you are doing it, or what do you... I mean... Basically, my question is, why? Why go through all of this and, expose yourself to some people who vote if you are human enough to be Swiss or not?
Yeah. I think the thing is, once you've been in Switzerland for a long time and there comes a point where you maybe decide, do I want to stay or not? Do I see my future here or not?
Yes.
And for me personally, if I'm living in a country and have decided that I want to stay there, then I want to be a permanent residence. I don't want to be constantly looking over my shoulder and worrying when the next vote comes around, am I going to be thrown out? And I want to be secure, know that I belong here and really feel part of things, start to feel that I am part of this country and not just a visitor.
Do you think that will happen as soon as you have the passport?
I think it will happen once I've learned all of the answers to the quiz and I can beat Swiss people on certain questions when they come up of an evening, for example.
I'm not sure if... No, to be honest, I think it is a big part and I can totally understand it. And I think it's a must if you want to do that, what you just said. But I also think it might be still, you will have kind of... not really racism, but kind of...
Yeah, that people still won't treat you the same.
Yes,
I think because that's probably true.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure people will say, yes, she has the passport, but she is not a real Swiss.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I guess that might also happen.
Yes.
But at that point, you can say, well, that's their problem, not mine. Yeah, I've done everything and more.
Yeah, in that point, you can just say nothing, because I think to these people, it's not really worth talking.
Exactly.
Anyway, so now we have roughly laid out the plan for the becoming Swiss procedure.
Yep.
We know how long it will take, roughly. Like a year or so, or 2 years.
Maybe 3, I don't know.
Maybe 3. Okay, we don't know how long it will take. Is there any worry that you won't get the passport, or do you have worries at all? I mean, we have heard now these horror stories and so on. We also kind of want to motivate other people to, follow their dreams. Do you think it's a big dream, or is it doable?
I mean, I think it should be doable. I've got the language bit down. I already have my certificate that's above the minimum requirement, so I feel quite good on that point. So long as they don't make me take another quiz, that would be kind of annoying. But I think it should be fine.
You have a podcast about Switzerland.
Have a podcast about Switzerland.
A small plus.
Yep. Not a big plus.
You have been Hornussen one time.
I've done all the Swiss sports.
You haven't done all the Swiss sports, have you?
No, I haven't done stone throwing. True, but there's still a year to go.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think I've done a lot, and yeah, it should be fine. But I am slightly worried that, when it comes to the interview or whatever, they might have different expectations, and at the end, you can only be yourself, really. And if myself isn't good enough for whoever's interviewing me, that could be a problem. But
then the last question is, what if it doesn't work?
If it doesn't work? Well, I know from the tale of the young woman who was determined not to be Swiss enough that you can appeal. And she appealed and it worked out. So I'll appeal. But yeah, this is a long way off.
So your plan B is get me the passport or I sue you.
No, I mean, I've looked into all the things you have to do. I think the ball is rolling already for, ultimate Swissness to appear over the next year or so. I hope it will work out. And if it doesn't, I think you can take the tests again and have another go.
Yes, definitely. So I'm really looking forward to this whole process, has to be said.
Yeah, it's
quite exciting, and I hope also our listeners can profit a bit from that experience. And yeah, we will follow up each step you take.
Yeah, when something new happens, we'll let you know about it.
Yes, and in the meantime, check us out on our website. It's called swissandchips.com. Follow us on iTunes, leave a review, and meet other listeners in our Facebook group, which is called
Switzerland for English Speakers.
Oh, good, I forgot that. I had to remember all this stuff now in my head to how to say it in English. So
it's hard.
Too much.
It's a bit of a tongue twister, even in English, to be honest. The name of the group.
Okay, I work on the promotion of our podcast, and in the meantime, you try to become Swiss.
Yes, good. They've got something to do.
So that was it for this week, and hope to hear you next time.
All right, bye.
Bye.